Imagine, you are John D. Rockefeller. It's the dawn of the 20th century. The year is 1911. You are not merely a wealthy man, you are the game. 90% of every single oil refinery in the United States is firmly under your thumb. With a monopoly so relentless it crushed all competition without mercy, you have become the undisputed titan of the oil industry. Even when the Supreme Court, in a landmark decision, moved to dismantle your colossal Standard Oil empire, carving it into 34 smaller companies, you had never been wealthier. Your personal fortune soared to an astronomical $900 million, a sum so vast that adjusted for today's economy, you would need to combine the entire wealth of modern-day titans like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates just to begin to scratch the surface of your financial might. But now, with your family's prosperity secured for the next 70 generations and beyond, your gaze begins to shift to problems far grander than mere money. Because despite having amassed mountains of cash, a fortune beyond imagination, you still harbored a desire for something infinitely more ambitious. You wanted to sculpt society itself. And the most efficient mechanism you found for this profound ambition was, surprisingly, also the most outwardly benevolent: philanthropy. You begin to systematically donate your immense fortune, and from that precise moment forward, everything that individuals would typically do in their lives, to study, to work, to manage their own health, would seamlessly pass through a meticulously designed system that you yourself had constructed. This intricate system was poised to fundamentally alter schools, hospitals, governments, and even the collective consciousness of people who would live centuries after your own demise. This is precisely how the Rockefeller Matrix was conceived and meticulously woven into the fabric of the world. And to this very day, millions are unknowingly living within its confines, desperately trying to escape its unseen grasp. At the turn of the century, John D. Rockefeller's public image was far from favorable. His clandestine cartels, his dubious business practices that ruthlessly obliterated competitors, fostered widespread hatred throughout the entire nation. But there was a simple yet powerful truth Rockefeller understood. While people might despise a ruthless billionaire, they cannot easily hate someone who gives money away. So, with strategic precision, he began to systematically donate vast portions of his fortune. In 1913, he formally established the Rockefeller Foundation. In the public eye, through this act of ostensible generosity, he was meticulously transformed from the cruel, feared oil baron into the great benefactor of humanity. However, his donations were anything but neutral. By generously funding universities, pioneering research initiatives, and state-of-the-art hospitals, he wasn't simply providing capital. Rockefeller was actively and decisively setting the very direction for these influential institutions. After all, as the saying goes, he who pays the piper ultimately calls the tune, and he knew precisely what tune he wanted to hear. His primary targets were unmistakably clear: education and health. Because to gain control over what people learn and how their bodies are treated is to, in essence, control society itself. The very first cog in this ambitious machine was placed directly in the classroom. In the early 1900s, the American educational system was largely decentralized, characterized by varied curriculums and localized teaching methods. This was utterly unsuitable for Rockefeller's vision. He demanded a singular, standardized approach, and the true nature of this plan was articulated with a chilling sincerity. A pivotal document, penned by Frederick Gates for the General Education Board, a philanthropic foundation established by none other than John D. Rockefeller himself, boldly declared the following: "In our dreams, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hand. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers, or men of learning, or men of science. We shall not try to make of them authors or educators. The task we set before ourselves is very simple. We will organize our children and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way." Rockefeller had no interest in fostering philosophers. His objective was to cultivate human cogs, perfectly suited for the burgeoning industrial machine. By strategically funding universities and influential educational councils, he ensured that this uniform model would rapidly proliferate across the nation. Education, as a result, transmuted into the repetitive rote learning of fragmented information, primarily geared towards passing standardized tests. This ubiquitous school architecture didn't emerge organically. It was unequivocally engineered. Consider this for a moment. Do you genuinely believe that 12 mandatory years within such a system, predominantly focused on memorization drills, will truly foster genuinely wise individuals? It is hardly surprising then that our contemporary society is populated by a vast number of functional illiterates. This system was meticulously crafted with a deliberate purpose to generate a compliant populace with virtually no chance of significant social mobility, thereby ensuring the established elites remained firmly entrenched at the top. Yet Rockefeller's ambitions did not halt with the mind. He sought to extend his dominion to the very body itself. The next crucial target was medicine. Prior to this era, medical colleges embraced diverse practices. Herbalism, naturopathy, homeopathy, the extensive use of natural remedies was commonplace. This decentralized, unpredictable ecosystem was simply unacceptable for Rockefeller's grand scheme. He needed a unified, standardized approach. So, in 1910, he meticulously financed the infamous Flexner Report. This comprehensive report traversed the entire country, meticulously evaluating medical schools and hospitals. The sweeping consequences were immediate and profound. Hundreds of medical schools, particularly those championing natural healing practices, and significantly, historically, black medical colleges, were summarily shut down. The institutions that managed to survive were rigorously reshaped by Rockefeller's influence, becoming bastions of a new form of medicine, one critically centered around the widespread use of patented drugs. But why such an intense, almost obsessive interest in fundamentally reshaping the landscape of medicine? The answer lay in Rockefeller's shrewd foresight. He simply refused to miss the unparalleled opportunity to penetrate the burgeoning pharmaceutical industry, an industry that, today, commands revenues exceeding $1 trillion annually. He leveraged his colossal oil fortune to generously fund extensive chemical research. Companies closely affiliated with his vast network swiftly began transforming petroleum derivatives into novel synthetic drugs. Scientists were awarded substantial grants to meticulously identify the effective chemical compounds found in plants. But the ultimate objective was not to utilize the plant itself. Rather, it was to painstakingly recreate a similar, yet crucially not identical, chemical compound in a laboratory setting, one that could be exclusively patented. In this masterful stroke, Rockefeller positioned himself to monopolize oil, chemistry, and medicine, all simultaneously. A perfect self-sustaining cycle was thus ingeniously engineered. The Rockefeller Foundation would lavishly fund the medical school, which in turn trained successive generations of doctors just to exclusively prescribe chemical drugs that were produced by the very same pharmaceutical cartel, in which Rockefeller and his associates held significant financial stakes. The result was yet another silent, insidious monopoly. Fundamental concepts like proper nutrition and preventative health measures were relegated to mere footnotes, and effective alternative therapies were systematically marginalized and aggressively labeled as nothing more than quackery. To ensure that no one ever truly perceived this intricate, grand illusion, Rockefeller understood he needed to exert control over one more critical domain: information itself. He possessed a profound understanding that genuine scientific advancement often falters without substantial funding, and that robust journalism, in its essence, cannot thrive without the lifeblood of advertising revenue. So, with strategic brilliance, he orchestrated both. By systematically sponsoring influential research institutes, he unilaterally dictated which scientific avenues were deemed promising and worthy of pursuit, and which were to be summarily dismissed and discarded. Concurrently, through targeted investments in key newspapers and magazines, often channeled via the pharmaceutical cartel in which he was deeply embedded, he meticulously filtered precisely what information was allowed to be published. Any criticisms of the burgeoning pharmaceutical model were swiftly and effectively silenced. The public, in their earnest desire for truth, genuinely believed they were following the dictates of science, but in practical reality, they were merely consuming narratives that Rockefeller's extensive network authorized to circulate. John D. Rockefeller passed away in 1937, but the meticulously constructed system he forged continued to thrive, growing ever stronger even in his absence. The modern school system, in its fundamental structure, still largely operates like an efficient industrial assembly line. Contemporary medicine, in its core practices, largely revolves around established pharmaceutical protocols. And remarkably, all of this feels utterly natural to us now, as if it has simply always been this way. And that was arguably his greatest, most enduring achievement. It wasn't merely the creation of immense wealth, but the profound act of normalizing an entire model of the world. People may not even consciously remember his name today, but when they walk into a school, a pharmacy, or a hospital, they are quite unknowingly navigating the very universe that he so powerfully helped to design.